there's always that question whether you should open an email or not, or follow the links that are in there. And John, can you tell us a little bit about how will we determine whether an email is legitimate or not?
Well, there's really quite a few ways to tell. And recently, McAfee created a blog entry, and it's really a good link. I think that one of the challenges there is it's a little generic. So what I've done is I've produced about 7 recommendations off of their 7 ways, and and it's kind of interesting is you want to say you look at an email. And we've talked about this before. I think I've given examples. You look to say, is the URL, if you get an email from AT&T, for example, is that URL actually AT&T that you might click on? Yes or no? Is it real nosy? Is the request real nosy? Are they asking you questions about what's your social security number? What's your password? Those are questions no legitimate groups ask. You look at the sender's email address. This is probably my key element. Is I look at that email address, and it may say johnmarkley@att.com, but if I hover over it or even do a reply just to curiosity's sake, it actually will point me to something else. It'll show that's not what it's displaying is not exactly what I'm going to respond to. So I think that's probably the most key element that I've ever seen. And a lot of times too, people say, don't take unsolicited mail. If you get an email from Grandma Smith, and you don't know a Grandma Smith, you might think, maybe it's not quite right. The blog here from McAfee also points out that most companies will use your name. They'll actually say, hi John. They won't say dear customer. And then, of course, which is not getting as big an issue is the typos, the foreign formatted languages, those type of things. That's probably the most curious, I guess, points of it is if you see an email that doesn't look like something a professional would do, it's probably not.
Absolutely. There have been at least some that have speculated that some of these emails may, in fact, there's the fraudulent emails crafted to try to get the low-hanging fruit, that is deliberately even perhaps have some mistakes in it or some low-resolution graphics to try to make it easier to target some of the folks that might be not paying so much attention to that, and to the more savvy folks to just kind of ignore them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the thing too, you got to wonder is are they waiting for somebody to respond to it just to click and say, I can't believe my bank did this? Just curiosity. It's like, outrage sometimes. you may catch you.
Yeah. Well, the fact is though, some of these it's not entirely a straightforward thing to do, and I think Matt, you've probably encountered this a number of times where the URL. It looks legitimate, but it doesn't look like it's directly associated with the organization. And then later you find out that it's a third-party organization that's doing something on behalf of a company, and it turns out to be perfectly legitimate. But it's even using these sorts of rules, they're certainly very helpful, but it can be tricky.
Oh, third-party emailers are always tricky. So I learned about at least one new one every single week because someone will say, this really didn't come from, my bank or my credit card company. And it turns out that someone sending emails on their behalf, completely legitimate, but unless you knew that there was that third party involved, you would, all of the bells in your head would be going off and you'd be, doing so rightfully. That's the right response.
Yeah. I guess my recommendation would be is if you're not sure,
delete it.
Yeah, delete it. Or perhaps ask somebody that might be able to help you figure out whether it's legitimate or not. It never hurts to ask for help.
Yeah, having a healthy degree of suspicion is always good, but don't go too far overboard. But
don't go over the top here.
When in doubt, ask Matt.
Oh, right. When in doubt, ask Matt. And Matt can be reached at ThreatTraq at list.att.com.